I got these two people I both love, but they hate each other. Yeah, it's okay. I ain't gonna make any peace with that idiot. That person that I hated the most was standing right there. I'm thinking, are you crazy? This guy's an idiot. He did this to me. He said this. You can only prove that you love somebody when they actually hurt you. If you say, hey, you know what? You hurt me. I'm out of here. You never loved them. You just thought you loved them. If you ask most people, what is freedom? How do you become free? They'll say, if I have all the money in the world and I have the time, then I'm free. I'm free to do whatever I want to do. I used to think like that. If I had the money and the time, I'd be free. But that's not the case. If you have the money and the time, but you're a jerk, you're not as free as you think you are, because you're not going to be welcome in the places that you want to go to. So in other words, because the fact of your reputation, your character, your unwillingness to make peace with others, you're not welcome. You actually lose your freedom, even though you got money and time. But the minute that you can choose to forgive, the real reason you're forgiving is so that you can get your freedom back. Let's just say you went to a wedding and you're at the wedding and there's like 200-300 people walking around, and then you see somebody that you do not like, that you have had a confrontation with, and inside you can feel, every time you look at their face, it's like you're thinking, man, I hate that guy or that girl so much. It makes your blood boil every time you look at their face, and you think that's okay. Yeah, it's okay. I ain't gonna make any peace with that idiot. And you know what? You just justify it. Keep your distance, and you think, I'm okay. But then all of a sudden, over the course of the evening, you got to go to the washroom. And now all of a sudden, you start heading towards the washroom, and you just open the door and you see that exact person on the other side of the door. They haven't seen you yet, but you saw them. The chances are you ain't going inside. You're just going to let the door close and you're going to walk away thinking, I ain't going in there. I'll wait till that person leaves and then I'll go in there. But what's really happened is you just lost your freedom to even go to the washroom because you won't make peace. You won't forgive that person. And now all of a sudden, you can't even go to the washroom because you're trapped. So your own selfish desires to not forgive actually causes you to lose your freedom. And when I started thinking about freedom from that perspective, I started realizing I don't want that. It's like if you have family relatives and you want to invite your brothers over, your cousins over, and then all of a sudden you think, oh, how can I invite this person over when they hate that person? And now you're thinking, what do I do here? I got these two people I both love, but they hate each other. And if I invite them both, they might actually ask me, is that person coming? Because if they're coming, I'm not coming. And that's when you start to realize, this is crazy. You got these two people who don't even like each other, but they're causing themselves to lose the freedom to even go to a family event because they won't make peace with each other. And when I looked at it from that terms, I started thinking, okay, you know what? I want my freedom. I want to be able to go wherever I want to go and not be restricted. And so to me, in my mind, I always think, do I have anybody that I have any resentment against? And I can't even think of one person right now that I have an issue with that I couldn't face to face because of any conflict in our relationship, because I've made peace with every single person that I've ever had a problem with that I can remember. And I'll tell you this one brilliant experience that I had. A few years ago, I was invited to this event. It was called Breakthrough. When it was a very intense 2 to 3 day event. And when we got there, they said, look, it's called Breakthrough because we break you. I'm like, what? We're sitting there, everybody's sitting in these seats, and the guy says to us, he goes, okay, there's only a small amount of people here. Something like 20, 25 people max. And he goes, you're here for 3 days. He says, the first thing I want you all to do is I just want you to look around and look at everybody's faces. I'll give you a minute or so. Just look around. So everybody's looking around and looking at the faces. And we're all wondering, why is he telling us to look at everybody's faces? And so we did. We all did that. And then all of a sudden he goes, okay, now that you've all had a good look, now I want you to go back to the person who reminds you of somebody that you can't stand, that you have had a problem with, that every time you look at this person, it reminds you of that person. I want you to pick up your chair and go and sit right in front of that person, the one in this room that reminds you of the person that you can't stand. And as soon as he said that, I'm sitting there going, oh my God, if somebody comes and sits in front of me, this is going to be so so embarrassing. So I just grabbed my chair, got up, and I went instinctively, just like instant reaction. I went and sat in front of this person. And I just said to them, I'm so sorry that I'm sitting in front of you, but you just remind me of somebody that I've had an issue with in the past. This person reminded me of somebody years ago. I could tell you, I hated them so much. And so I'm sitting in front of them embarrassed. And then the guy who's running the whole show, the event, he says, okay guys, now that you found the person that you've had an issue with, guess what? You're all going to be here for 3 days. So you're going to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day with this person that you're sitting in front of. I'm thinking, are you crazy? They go, yeah, because you're judging these people just by their faces, and yet they ain't done anything to you. So now what you're going to do is you're going to break through that barrier of that face that they have that is also causing problems in your life with other people that you don't even realize, because they're reminding you of things in your past that you've had issues with. Every meal, I had to sit in front of this person and build a relationship knowing that every time I look up and I see their eyes, I'm like, I don't like you, right? Or you remind me of this person. But after a few meals, the person was so nice. I'm thinking, I don't believe it. And then what it was doing, it was reframing their face to somebody I liked. But then I didn't know what they were really going to do. The next day, they said, okay, we have another aspect to this now. Because obviously, you've been hurt by somebody deep down. And that's why you keep seeing this person's face. So what we want you to do now, we're going to turn the lights down so it's fairly dark. And you're going to sit in front of another person. They randomly put those people in front. And they say, okay, you just close your eyes. And now you're going to tell this person for the next 5 to 10 minutes why you hate this person so much. What did they do to you? And you want to tell them exactly how you feel, the pain that they've caused you, the things that they did. What were you actually feeling? And how far did you go with this pain that they caused you? And you just pour your heart out and tell them everything that you feel they did to you. And I'm like, okay, I can do that. The lights are down, you can't see the person in front of you. And off we went for 10 minutes ranting and raving. This person did this and they did this to me and they said this. And then he stopped, put the lights back up. He goes, okay, now we're going to reframe it a little. Now we want you to assume that you are that person, the person you don't like. And now what we want you to do is we want you to put yourself in their shoes and take a few minutes and think about why they did what they did to you. What could have maybe caused them to say the things they did to you? Maybe you said something. Maybe you did something to them. But now we want you to actually take their side and pretend that they are them. And you're going to now pour your heart out and accuse yourself of how you caused pain to them in order for them to react to you the way that they did. And man, was this difficult for the first 2 minutes. But then all of a sudden, it's something crazy that happens to you. You're in their shoes. The lights are down. And now you start feeling from their perspective how they feel about you. And man, I was just giving it to myself. This guy's an idiot. He did this to me. He said this. I'm thinking, I can't believe it. I'm saying this stuff about myself. But what it did was took you yourself to the other side and made you accountable to the point where you start thinking, holy cow, you know what? I unintentionally hurt this person by saying this or by doing this. And I didn't realize that I was actually hurting them, but I was only thinking about myself. Now, no matter what they could have said, you would never have come to that conclusion because you would have always battled heads. But because you now had to act in their shoes, you defended them. And now in your own head, you've actually made peace. You haven't made peace with them yet, but you've made peace in your own mind that you've gone over that hurdle so you can eventually make peace with them face to face. But then there was a third aspect. Then they said, now what we want you to do now is think about this person and ask yourself, how have they helped you in your life? Is there any aspect of this person's life that has affected you positively? And you wouldn't believe it. I started sitting there thinking about this person that an hour ago, or like a few hours ago, I hated. And now they got me to think to the point where I sat there and I thought to myself, because of this person, this happened. And because that happened, this happened. And because that happened, this happened. And I couldn't believe it. This person that I hated the most on this planet Earth was the person that actually led to the point where my life was changed more than anything else in the world. The greatest discovery I ever made in this world was actually rooted from this person. And that's where I realized, oh my God, if this person wasn't in my life, I would never have this person in my life. And that led me to my spiritual life, all because of this person. And when I realized that, that's when I was ready to make peace with this person. I actually went to an event, a family event. And as I was going to this event, I actually was late. And when I finally got to the family event, there was a ton of people there, everywhere. So they said to me, they go, the food is downstairs. I said, great. They go, everybody's already got it, but it's okay. It's still there. So I started going downstairs, and all of a sudden, I couldn't believe it. That person that I hated the most was standing right there. I could see their back, and they were picking up the food, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is crazy. Normally, there's no way I would have stayed there. I would have just backed up those stairs, and that's when I realized I'm losing my freedom. I can't even go get the food. I'm gonna make peace because I want my freedom. But the way that I made peace was this. I walked up to the person. Person turned around. When our eyes met, I could see the nervousness in that person because they didn't like me at all. I started off the conversation with, I want to thank you. And they looked at me like, you want to thank me? I said, yeah. I was thinking about in the past, years ago, when you referred this person to me for a particular reason. You referred them to me, a stranger. They came to my house because I had a new baby. Me and my wife had a new son. They came to my house. I didn't even know who this person was. They were trying to sell me a scholarship for kids. So when they grow up and they go to university, he was selling me scholarships. When he came to my house, I actually did not know who he was, but I started building a relationship with him, and he became one of my best friends. And then he led me to somebody else, and I went to an event. And at that time, at the event, my life was a complete disaster. I had lost everything in my life. And at that point, at that event, I literally prayed and asked God to come and help me because I had been an atheist all my life. And would you believe it? From that day onwards, my relationship with God just completely blossomed. And I would never have discovered my spiritual life, my relationship with God, if it wasn't for the person that I had a problem with. And I told her, I says, you have changed my life more than anybody else in this whole world, all because of what you did years ago. And I want to thank you. I never realized how much you have helped me in my life. And when I said that to this person, the smile on their face went all the way to their ears. And I could see the glow in their face. And all we did was hug. We hugged each other. And I couldn't believe how I felt. It was like, not only did I get my freedom, but I felt so good. And that person, it was like they could just breathe easier because they were also losing their freedom because of me. That was a beautiful feeling when we actually embraced. I didn't say sorry to her. I said thank you. We didn't need to bring up the past. I just found value in our relationship, and it was an incredible feeling. What I discovered before is I could never have made peace with that person that I hated if I didn't have something inside of me nudging me, pushing me, giving me a reason to make peace with this person that I hated. And that was my relationship with God. And I look at it like this. If you ask most people, and if you ask me, where does the love in your heart come from? Where does the peace in your heart come from? Where does the joy, the happiness in your heart, where does it all come from? Most people will say, that joy, that peace, that love comes from my wife, comes from my husband, comes from my kids, comes from my best friend. They'll actually tell you who the joy and the peace and the love comes from. But there's a problem with this. This is what I realized. If my joy, my love, my peace comes from another human being, what happens is if we have an issue with our relationship? What happens if I say that my love, my peace, my joy comes from my wife? What happens if my wife betrays me? What happens if a husband betrays his wife? What happens if a son betrays his father? If a daughter betrays her father or mother? What happens if all your love, your joy, your peace comes from another human being? If they ever betray you, if they ever hurt you and walk away from your life, they will take your love, your joy, your peace in your heart with them as they leave your life, because that's where it was coming from. And then you have a problem because you will never be able able to forgive them, because you have nothing left in order to give you the power to forgive them. If they took your love, your peace, your joy, what are you going to forgive them with? Nothing. You have pain. You have emptiness in your heart. You'll never be able to forgive them. But if your joy, your peace, your love comes from your relationship with God, no human being can ever take it from you. No matter what anybody ever does to you, if they betray you or hurt you and walk out of your life, you still have the love, the peace, the power from your relationship to be able to still forgive them, because it doesn't come from them. And that is my personal motivation, my source of power to be able to forgive. And that's the only reason I made peace with that person that I could not stand, because years later, it took like 15, 20 years before I became the person to be able to overcome and find the power and the love to be able to go back and make peace. So in my mind and my heart, it's just really sad that I meet family relatives that hate each other, that they have decided not to associate whenever another family member comes to an event, and they will tell you, oh, I believe in God, I'm a religious person. I don't believe them, because they don't have that relationship with God enough to even make peace with their own relative. They don't have that relationship, because if they did, they would be hearing inside their heart and their mind, look, you keep saying you love me, you keep saying you love God, but how can you say you love me if you can't even forgive your brother, your sister? If you love me, then prove it. Prove your love to me. Like, for example, everybody will say, oh, I love my wife, I love my husband, I love my kids. That's easy to say. It's easy to say that you love these people. Because why? Because they've made you feel good. I said, but if they ever betray you or hurt you, can you forgive them? Because if at that point, the pain in your heart, if you say, I'm not forgiving them. Hang on a sec, I thought you said you loved them. Yeah, but they hurt me. Yeah, but hold on a second. How can you prove that you love someone? You can only prove that you love somebody when they actually hurt you, when they betray you. That is the only time that you can prove to them how much you really love them. Because if you say, hey, you know what? You hurt me, I'm out of here. You never loved them. You just thought you loved them. So to me, if you love somebody and you have a relationship with God, prove your love to God and prove your love to that person that you said you loved by forgiving them. And forgiving them is not saying it in your own head and saying, I forgive them. No, it's making peace. It's going to them and thanking them for who they are, apologizing for what you did, whatever you have to do, but to make peace. And I hear so many people say, I'll forgive them, but I won't forget. If you won't forget, you'll never forgive them, because the pain will never leave. In order to forgive somebody, you have to love, and then when they hurt you, love again and forget that they hurt you, and love again and forget that they hurt you, and continue to love. The key is in forgetting, because if you don't forget, if you don't force yourself to forget, you'll never truly be free. You'll never truly experience forgiveness, and nor will they. You cannot remember, because otherwise, even in the Bible it says, if you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior, God will take all your sins and wipe them away, and he'll forget what you did. So if he says that, we got to do the same. We got to forget. And so that this way we can actually have that relationship repaired. That's my personal opinion.